So for educational purposes, for a lot of people out there that don't know about how your shower is put together in regard to tiling, I'm going to explain something. This is a little bit of a follow-up to my video 100-year shower, where I kind of explain the little nuances of how builders build your shower. When you buy a new house, this is typically what you're going to see. It could be this 4-inch ceramic tile. Could be a white, it could be an off-white, bone, whatever. Builders are not going to spend a lot on tile. These are typically, 15, 20 cents each, and they're getting them at a huge discount because they buy big quantities of this stuff. But it's cheap, and they can throw it up in no time at all, and they don't do anything except mix it up. So what the builders do, mix up the grout is what I meant to say. So what the builders do is they go through a process when they build houses in a subdivision, and the process is this happens and then that happens and then that happens. So you got plumbers first, and then drywall guys next, and this and that, and electricians. And so by the time the tile guys get in, it's almost finished, and they just slap the tile up there the best they can, the fastest they can, because they got to move on to the neighbor's house. They got to keep going on. So it's a crew. And when the crew gets busy, they're slapping, they have a 5-gallon bucket full of grout, which they don't need that much grout. They only need 1/100th of a 5-gallon bucket. So they're mixing it up real runny so they can just slap it in there and move on to the next house. When you mix up grout runny, you're adding too much water to it. It breaks down the adhesion qualities that the grout is supposed to have. There's a certain percentage of water that you mix with grout. They're not going to use an admix, they're going to use water, and they're going to just slap it up there. This is typically how things are done. They'll put sheetrock on the walls. The drywall guys will come and put sheetrock, and then they'll transition to green board. You can kind of see where they did a transition to green board. All that is a mold prevention type of sheetrock. And then they put, now that second layer is sitting right here behind here. So these are called mud caps as opposed to a bullnose. So the mud caps wrap around this second layer of sheetrock. Sometimes they don't even use the green board. Sometimes they use sheetrock and sheetrock. But it's almost irrelevant because of the following process. So then they slap the tile up here as fast as they can, and then the next guy comes in and he grouts it, a couple hours later when he can actually get his hands on it. They're not going to let it set till the next day, so a couple hours later they're going to be grouting it with some sloppy grout. And so you can tell this one is 30, what is it, 85, 95, 2005. So this is what, 31, 32 years later. It's not horrible. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of maintenance issues that the homeowner didn't do, but where the grout is popping out is very, very typical because, again, they're mixing the grout way too thin. They're not using an admix, and they're definitely not sealing. They never seal anything. So even if you had a larger tile than this, if you had an 8x8 ceramic or even a 12x12 ceramic with sanded grout on a new house, which would almost be a spec house because most builders aren't going to do that, they go away and they wipe off the excess haze to make it look pretty, but they never put a sealer on here. So even when you buy a brand new house, you have to seal your grout before you ever use it. And even this is a bathtub, but if this is a shower, then since this is Achilles heel on the shower floor of every shower that I take out and I see damage, you make sure that you seal this. Walls, yes, but this at least 3 or 4 times on your shower floor when you buy a new house. And don't even use the shower. You don't know how much water penetration it has. Don't even use the shower for at least a week, and put a fan on it and let any possible water that's inside of your shower pan dry out before you seal it, and then a good 3 or 4 coats on top of that. And then on the walls, yes, maybe a coat or 2, but that's not a huge deal, but on the floor definitely. But even if it's not a new house, it's a used house that you're buying, and the house is set around for a month or 2 or whatever, that's wonderful. Now you come in and you do your due diligence as a homeowner. The maintenance thing is very important. So you make sure that you seal everything. Even on a non-sanded grout type of issue, you make sure you seal everything. So you add a little strength to the grout so you're not having these issues with the grout popping out. Second thing that people aren't doing is they're not caulking properly. So this one has probably been recaulked over the last 30 years, who knows how many times. And the caulking is important in respect to how they build things, and let me explain. If they did things normally, this tile would overlap on the tub lip So you have a tub lip that comes up like this, probably about an inch, inch and a quarter. And the sheetrock, in this case, the sheetrock should be sitting on top of that tub lip. It shouldn't be sitting on the tub edge, right? So what they do is they just go ahead and slap it up there, especially when it's a tight fit. They just slap the sheetrock right up to the tub edge, and there lies the problem, because anytime you get water up under here, it's going to weep up your sheetrock, and it's going to make this whole bottom row or 4 or 5 rows of tile really weak. And I could probably, if I were doing a demo on this, I could probably just use my fist and just punch it, and it would probably just fall apart because all the sheetrock is saturated. And in addition to that, all this mold and mildew that you're seeing here will be pervasive all the time. It doesn't matter how much Tilex and bleach you use. Once you spray this off, all that water penetration that's already in your sheetrock that's encapsulated behind here is growing mold and mildew continuously all the time. Even when you caulk it, you're going to see your caulking turn color just like it did over here. And that's because the mold and mildew is still getting through, and it still has an ability. All it needs is water and air. And once it has those two things, it's going to grow. So it already has the air back there, and it has the water up under here. So it doesn't matter that you've caulked it. It's still going to be growing. And then, of course, your grout's going to discolor too, and you're going to get mold and mildew in your grout. And then you're like, well, let me re-grout. And then, you know, this is a lot of grout to re-grout. I don't do re-grouting because inevitably it'll take me half a day. And you have to be real careful, and sometimes it's a Pandora's box because you start pressing into these grout lines with any type of tool, and you're going to disturb the tile that's very precariously put on there by virtue of this wet sheetrock. And so I don't do re-grouting. So the only thing you can end up doing is doing a painting on this grout, and that's basically what they've done before. You see the whole tub and the walls got painted at one point. And so that's all you're doing is buying time at that point. So this is definitely, and oh, by the way, builders do not do anything with regard to a waterproofer either. So as I was explaining before, with this first layer sheetrock, they put the second one on, which is okay, but there's no red guard, there's no waterproofing whatsoever. Even though green board is mold and mildew resistant, it doesn't matter when you come down here because you've got total, you know, saturation of the bottom of your sheetrock constantly all the time. So they're not doing things right. And now getting back to my 100-year shower video, this is a 100-year bathtub, and it's still functional. It still runs. This leaks. The hot side leaks. And the reason that it leaks, even the cold side leaks, but the hot side is going to leak even more. Inside of here, this is old-fashioned type of valve, and so you have a seat way back in the back of the valve where the pipe is actually, you have what's called a seat. So it's like a donut shaped type of thing. At the end of that seat is where, when you turn your water on and off, there's a washer at the end of that valve, and that washer hits up against that seat, and it's supposed to give you, you know, like watertight seal. So if you ever have your tub dripping and leaking all the time, even a steady run on your tub, that's what's happening. The seat and or the washer behind the valve is bad. So the cartridge anyway. So what you end up with is just leaking all the time from your tub spout, or if you have a shower, it would be the same situation. Your shower head just continues to leak all the time. In this case, as the handle leaks, it's called the packing. So the packing is like a material. It's actually a rubber and what do you call it? Like a burlap sack or something is the best way I can describe it. Interwoven into that rubber. And it's a seat, it's a packing that goes inside of the valve, and when that packing goes bad, then it has nowhere, the excess water has nowhere to go when you turn it on. When you open it up like that, the water's going to run out of here because the packing is bad. So in this case, the packing is bad on both of these, the hot and the cold. But the hot usually goes first, even with regard to the washer that I was telling you about, because obviously hot water is going to deteriorate things faster than the cold water, but both of those are bad. Anyway, that's not really relevant, except that, again, when the packing goes bad or your seat and stuff like that go bad, you're exposing a lot of water to this area. And typically in apartments, you'll see this whole area has been cut out and redone many times because people don't call maintenance and say, hey, my fixture is leaking. So sometimes it leaks and it actually goes back behind the escutcheon and goes inside the wall and gets all the sheetrock wet, and there lies a problem. So this whole area is usually taken out and not very well matched with another tile. So that's kind of an education on why your tub gets mold and mildew all the time, because of all those things that I mentioned. Going forward, 31, 32 years later, we're doing things much better. So even if I only put this same tile up here, I would still use green board on here, but I would waterproof all the green board before I ever put any tile up. Then once the tile goes up, and I would not choose 4x4 tile, because then you're stuck using non-sanded grout. It would still work, obviously, for another 30 or 40 years, but I just don't prefer it. So I would do a bigger tile with sanded grout. I would use an admix to my grout, and I would make sure that the customer seals it. You know, once I leave and everything dries out well, it must be sealed. That way it prevents any water from going in. And again, this is very important. Do not put any backer board. I don't care if it's green board, hardy backer, Durock. Don't put it on the tub edge. It's meant to sit on the tub lip so that your tile overlaps that, and there's no way water can jump up that 1.25 inches to hit your board, because any board that you use is still going to be porous, and it's still going to cause you problems. Mold and mildew issues will still happen. Hardy backer, you know, is not a miracle cure. It's 90% Portland cement, and they don't tell you what the other 10% is, but Portland cement, of course, is porous. So it's still going to cause you problems if you get water up under here. So make sure anytime you have something like this done that it sits on the tub lip and not the tub edge. The overlap of the tile is very, very important, and it will negate all of this mold and mildew that's going on here. But there you go.